Okay, we are live, but we got to let it breathe just for a moment while we bring on Facebook, while we bring on the Instagram peeps, and we will get this party started. Looks like we're good there. And we are good. Welcome in, everybody. It's the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, my fellow football priest, who you know, who you love, Zack Kelberman. Zack, unfortunate news today. We learned, obviously the rookies reported for training camp at Broncos Park. Let me get this straight. Powered by Common Spirit. Man, just too much. Yesterday, and then we learned today, one of the more talented rookies everybody's kind of excited about, going to start things off on the non-football injury list. Break it down.
I saw that. I think it was David Yunkin in the chat or William Catalano responding to David, and he goes, there wasn't much to break down, and it's the truth. We know that he went on NFI. It was active NFI, not reserve NFI, and the difference is that means he can return to the field at any time once he gets healthy from the injury that caused him to land on NFI, which we don't know, Chad. This kind of came out of nowhere. It was tucked away on the league transaction wire. I wrote it up, but he was healthy for spring practices. Maybe something went wrong. NFI would suggest that he was hurt away from the Broncos training facility, not on the Broncos grounds, but we'll have to wait for more information. I don't know that we're going to get it, though, considering how tight-lipped Sean Payton is, but it's another blow to the backfield that already has Audric Estime dealing with, what was it, a knee, some sort of knee issue?
Yeah. Yeah. But that is the silver lining, is that it's the designation where that's no skin off their teeth. They can bring him back at any point. That tells me that, I don't know, obviously, yet either, Zach, but it tells me maybe a tweak working out or something recently. And they're like, you'll probably be good by maybe the first week of camp at some point, maybe even sooner. So we'll do this. But I don't understand. I guess there are rules. You gotta make those NFIs when they report, right? Like otherwise, certain designations are no longer open to you. So yeah, it's a bummer. I am curious to hear what the update on Estime is going to be, because, man, last year, just the last couple of years, actually, different rookies, mysterious absences and OTAs. We're told they're going to be all right by camp, and then they end up like redshirting a good chunk of, if not all, the rookie season.
Yeah, and just so we're clear, we had a comment saying, who are we talking about? That'd be Blake Watson, the undrafted rookie running back, who the Broncos gave Chad a sizable guarantee to, $275,000 when they signed him as UDFA. So obviously they have plans for him. As I wrote, Sean Payton kind of loosely compared him to Alvin Kamara with his ability to run the ball and catch the ball out of the backfield. I'm really excited to see what he can do. He could be that joker, the spark plug in the backfield, but you can't make the club from the tub. He has to get healthy and back on the field.
Also, for what it's worth, this is what Coach Payton said back on May 30th when Estime suffered his injury during a workout. He said, quote, "I'll just be honest about Audric. We went ahead and had a PRP, a platelet-rich injection, did a small scope procedure just to make sure that's plasma-rich or platelet-rich plasma. Anyway, we did a small scope procedure just to make sure everything is clean. It is. So he had a PRP injection, Zach, and a small scope. Then he says he'll be available at the start of training camp. So we won't see him through OTAs, yada, yada. It was all good news. He'll stay in rehab. He'll be a full go at the start of training camp. So, I take that to what its literal meaning shows, and that he'll be good to go on the 26th.
Well, if he wasn't, I feel like he would have been on a NFI or PUP along with Blake Watson, because rookies did report to training camp yesterday. So no news is good news there. And I hope all these players get healthy, Chad, because that backfield, though it's kind of crowded, there's so much, I can't ever pronounce it. Dynamism.
Dynamism. There you go.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's the word.
Well, that's what they have in spades between all the different rookies and the veterans. So I want to see it all come together. But again, you can't contribute if you're on the sideline.
True. I'm seeing this also from Eli. How's Dulcich still recovering from a hamstring injury from last year? Because it wasn't just a hamstring injury, for what it's worth, big dog. It was a brutal hamstring injury coming on the heels of multiple lingering long-term hamstring injuries, sent across the fruited plain to multiple specialists. And after him missing as much time as he did last year, and by the way, the Broncos did not expect him to miss that much time. They knew he was going to miss a little time, but that kind of shocked him. And in Sean Payton's opinion, no doubt set the offense back in ways. They're just playing it safe with him this time. So, I mean, I guess it makes sense, Zach, to play it safe with a player like Dulcich, but at the same time, you play it too safe, then he ends up being soft, then you put him back out there, and kaboom, it happens all over again.
It's definitely a catch-22, and I think there's a more disparaging answer when it comes to the question how. The answer is because it's Greg Dulcich. It'd be like asking, how is Jake Butt, back in the day? How is he still hurt? How is he not playing? Because it's Jake Butt. Until proven otherwise, Chad, that's the reputation that will precede Greg Dulcich as a pro. An injury-prone, unavailable, unreliable player, as talented physically as he may be.
And let's not take this away from him, too, by way of his reputation. Weird Al Yankovic impersonator. That will always follow him, too. Let us hope that that's not how he's remembered. Let us hope that he does something on the field to make that just a kind of funny thing of, hey, remember when? The Ronk jumping in with some love and a message on Facebook. So good to see you, Mike. Hope you're doing well tonight. Big Dog saying, good evening, Chad and Zach on the MHH podcast. Go Broncos. Great to see you, my brother. Also great to see Patrick. What's up? Aloha, right back at you, Big Dog. Any players on the wish list that could still be had? Zach, anybody out there that kind of got you chomping at the bit, so to speak?
The only one I can think of to keep it for continuity's sake is a center, maybe, just for that veteran kind of fail-safe. And the only guy I can think of is coming off a major injury. We talked about it a few pods ago. Connor Williams, but he's older. Again, he's coming off a major injury. Do you want to roll with a veteran like that or give the reps to the younger guy? Other than that, though, Chad, I think the Broncos roster is pretty well set because they have a lot of younger guys they're going to evaluate. And knowing me, as you know by now, I always want the younger guys to get the reps.
I'm keeping an eye on inside linebacker. I'm keeping an eye on rush linebacker, even though they've got a million dudes at rush linebacker. No proven guys per se, like proven. A couple of 8.5 sack guys in Benito and Cooper and Browning. If he can stay healthy, he'll be a 10+ guy. But just to throw some names out there, off ball. This was in an article you guys can go read from Eric Trickle earlier this week. At off ball linebacker, inside linebacker, you got the likes of Zach Cunningham. You've got Shaq Leonard out there, Quan Alexander. All these guys, though, probably Zach looking for an opportunity to chase a ring. Denver probably not the most attractive free agent landing spot. As far as outside linebacker, one guy jumps out that Broncos fans will know. Yannick Ngakwe's out there. You got the likes, Zach, of Shaq Lawson, Emmanuel Ogbah, Marcus Golden, Carl Lawson, Marvin Ingram. Those are some options, etc. But I think for now, the main posture for the Broncos, it's kind of a holding pattern, is let's get into camp, let them kind of compete and see how it looks. They have a nice little chunk of Evan Mathis money ready to go if needed. And the voodoo you saw just 2 days ago, Zach, in the form of the Quinn Meinerz $80 million extension, $24 million of which he'll get in year one, just goes to show you there's so many ways and voodoos and different things they can conjure to massage that salary cap. It's wild.
Here's a fun one. You know who else is available still? Justin Simmons.
Ha!
Crazy. It's July 18th and Simmons is still a free agent. You got to wonder why. Jamal Adams got a contract before Simmons did. I think he will eventually, but still fascinating development for the former Pro Bowler and All-Pro. But you're right. I like a lot of the players the Broncos have, and I want to see the backups and the younger guys get their shine.
Definitely. Phil down in Tucson, great to see you, big dog. Appreciate the support. Says, good evening, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. Really hoping for an injury-free season. Buckham, MHH for life, Broncos for life. You're never going to get a perfectly injury-free, and I know that's not what you mean, Phil, but like, if it's like last year, hey, the Broncos, that would be a major victory to have 2 seasons in a row with that minimal of, starter games on injured reserve or starter games being missed, etc. So fingers crossed. We're right there with you, Phil.
They already had a major injury in Drew Sanders. Hopefully that's the last one of the season. It probably won't because it's part of the game. And you're right, Chad. The Broncos injury luck, which was so stunning after years of them being decimated, led to their 8-9 record or helped lead to that record. And they can't hope for the same thing twice, but they're in better hands, strength and conditioning wise, and with the medical staff that Sean Payton hired.
True. Phil, love you, big dog. Thank you for throwing down some support. You know it. We really appreciate you, especially this deep into the NFL summer. I mean, we're almost there, Zach. I mean, we're sitting here on the 18th. Training camp opens the 26th, so we're like a little more than a week out. We're basically a week out. It's rad. Taylor, so good to see you breaking the ice for us tonight on Super Chat. Thank you, buddy. Says the injuries continued. Glad it's not Javonte Williams or Jaleel McLaughlin. Yeah, I mean, it's a small thing, though. If it was a big thing, it would be, as Zach mentioned, the other designation of the NFI list where they're mandated to miss X amount of time before they can return, even if they're healthier before that. So I wouldn't trip on it or see it as any kind of harbinger. It's more just housekeeping for the Broncos.
Yeah, I just read that actually with Ryan Ramczyk out there in New Orleans. He was placed on reserve NFI. He's out for the season, Chad, and because he's a vested veteran that went on NFI before I think either the training camp or the season started, it rules him out for the whole year. But Taylor, I don't want it to be anyone. I don't want to pick either or. I hope the whole backfield stays healthy. But like Chad said, these injuries are minor, and we hope that Estime and Watson will be good to go for the duration of training camp.
We got George Fox jumping in on Facebook as well. Love it. Facebook coming through big time. He says, it's just about time for the start of the season. Hopefully we have a good preseason with no major injuries. Go Broncos. Broncos for life, MHH for life. Thanks, guys. You've made this time better. Thanks again. Yeah. Well, we thank you for the very same reason. We all get through it together. You guys show up. We show up. And we pass the time. Before you know it, training camp's just about here.
And then the season starts, and then we all look at each other in January and say, where did the season go? It went so fast. But, we're really excited about this year coming up. We can all
Eli jumping in. Again, Eli Bernal. Thank you, bro. Appreciate the star support on Facebook. You know this. Zach, you mentioned Justin Simmons. You know, who else is still available? Justin Simmons. Well, guess who else? Kareem's still out there, dude. Do you think Kareem's going to find an NFL home this year? Or do you think the NFL's kind of like, we don't want that smoke, the fines at the and the penalties at the penultimate worst point in a game?
I just don't. What does he bring you, Chad, besides experience and I guess mentorship? And even then, is he going to teach people how to illegally hit others? I just his physical talents and his coverage ability is a thing of the past. He extended his career only because he transitioned from cornerback to safety. And I feel like this is 2021, 2022 going on a Kareem Jackson rant. But I think the sooner he goes into coaching, the better off he'll be.
I mean, it'd be one thing if at 36 he could still run with a receiver and play corner. Because remember, he was drafted in the first round out of Alabama back in 2010. If memory serves, 2010 as a corner. Spent the first, now at this point, half of his NFL career on the boundary, and then moved to safety in Houston. Then came to Denver purely as a safety. But we'll see what happens. I wouldn't shed too many years for my dog because Zach, he made, just take a wild guess, his career earnings, Kareem Jackson.
50 mil. More?
Conservative.
Wow.
$82 million this man made. Now, keep in mind, Uncle Sam took probably half of that money, but still 40 million, some odd, maybe a little bit more, depending on how good his tax peeps were, right? 40 some odd million in career earnings over a 14, 15 year span. God bless him, but I'm not shedding any tears for my dog. Eli, Bo Nix throws for 300 yards, 2+ tutties at Seattle week 1. We are set. Hey, dude, if he wins the job, and I think he will, and he starts off the season, Zach, at that note, oh, baby, you're going to have some excited people around the Rocky Mountains.
For sure. And, in the best case scenario, Bo puts up big numbers and the Broncos win. But this year, Chad, especially with him being a rookie and it being a transitional campaign, I don't think the stats necessarily will correlate to wins and losses. For example, he can have a bad game statistically, thank you so much, Michaela. Let me just finish my point really quickly before we get to the Duchess. He can have a bad game stat-wise and the Broncos still win. Conversely, he can have a major game stat-wise and the Broncos lose. People forget in the 2022 opener, Russell Wilson threw for over 300 yards, Chad. He didn't have the worst game in the world. The Broncos lost. But in the best case, like I said, we get the big game from Bo. The Broncos come out victorious.
By the way, real quick, Justin Simmons, career earnings, Zach, $62 million. Now, he came in the league, 6 years after Jackson? You go, wait a minute. I know 6 years is 6 years, but that's still a pretty big gap. Also remember the NFL lockout where those rookie contracts changed. Wasn't Sam, what's his name? Oh my gosh, Oklahoma. Bradford. Wasn't he the 2010 class?
I think he was 09. He was the last one to get the big
09.
I think he might have been 10.
The lockout was 2011. That's when the CBA changed. If memory serves, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but it'd be interesting to see what Kareem's rookie contract was. I guarantee it wasn't slotted like it is now. The Duchess, we love you, Michaela. Seriously, thank you so much. Let's cover this again. She says, bummer about Watson. How bad was it? How much time will he miss? Now, keep in mind, we don't have any word from Sean Payton, not that he'd be inclined to tell us anything, but this is strictly based off wire reporting. The Broncos doing some housekeeping. Explain the NFI thing, Zach, to the Duchess and the version that they designated him and what that means.
Well, yeah, first of all, thank you as always, Michaela, dropping bombs on the podcast in the best way possible. There's two NFI non-football injury designations. There's active NFI and reserve NFI. Active NFI, which Watson landed on, means he can be activated and returned to the field at any time. Not the case with reserve NFI. And because he's on NFI, it means that he was hurt, whatever his injury may be, as minor as it may be, he was hurt away from the Broncos facility. This happened to KJ Hamler, I think, a couple years ago, Chad. He went on NFI because he got hurt away from the Broncos training facility. So we don't know how much time he's out. I'm assuming it's going to be minor, and he'll be back at some point in August.
For what it's worth, yes, Bradford was 2010. That's when, they're like, this dude's coming in the league. His rookie draft pick, first overall pick, contract was like usurping dudes who had like multiple perennial all-pro quarterbacks. And so eventually they're like, nah. But anyway, Duchess, love you. Appreciate you so much. I wouldn't worry too much about Watson. It's going to be okay. I really want to see Audric Estime healthy and out there when the cleats hit the grass on the 26th. So until then, we're in a little bit of a holding pattern, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. If it was a big deal, as Zach mentioned, it would have been the other NFI. So don't worry too much.
Yeah, and plus, what's just so good about having a log jam position? The Broncos are technically down two of the running backs right now, but you still have Javonte, you still have Samaje, you still have Jaleel McLaughlin, and you still have Tyler Batty.
I'm pretty sure it's Beatty, even though I screw up sometimes and say Batty. I'm pretty sure
the pronunciation guide. We have to get that going.
What was that guy's name on Deliverance? The squeal like a pig guy, something Beatty.
Yeah.
Wasn't he? Ned Beatty. Ned Beatty, but not spelled Badie Beatty. I want to say, or like Warren Beatty. This is a unique pronunciation or spelling of the surname Beatty, but I'm pretty sure it's Beatty. Love you, Michaela. David Youngkin wants to know, and with a super chat. Thank you, David. You're in the chat just about every night. I mean, every night, dude. So when you throw down a super, we really, really, really appreciate you, big dog. He says, for Justin Simmons, him still being a free agent, training camp's about to start. Is it because he's asking too much, or is it something else? I think it's a little bit of everything. I think what explains his continued lingering, languishing on the free market is the fact that out of the gates, he was expecting to be able to command what the Broncos were set to pay him this year before he was released. But he got a rude awakening when he realized, not only Zach has the NFL DB safety market just plummeted, but you're also, unfortunately, Simmons, you're on the wrong side of 30 now. So expectations combined with market changes and fluctuations, Zach combined with his age. And then also, let's face it too, he wasn't that good last year.
Exactly.
The year prior, co-interception leader in the NFL. this past season, had some injury issues early on. That first quarter, missed a game or two. So, if he just comes to the table with maybe a little bit more reasonable ask, he'd probably find a number of teams lining up to take him.
Yeah, fully agree. He's probably asking too much, and he was humbled by not getting it, but I think he was humbled by the fact that he realized NFL evaluators, general managers, coaches, they don't put the same price tag on him based on his ability. You just talked about it, Chad. He maybe in his mind thinks he's better than he actually is, or how the NFL sees him. To me, he's a very good safety. I wouldn't call him the best in the NFL. I wouldn't even call him a top 3 guy, top 5, maybe. The only other thing I can think of here besides money is he'll take his sweet time because he'll get an offer. I'm assuming he's already had one, and skip the grueling August training camp practices, sign right before the season, and then jump right into it.
True. And yeah, Scott, he is the squeal like a pig guy though, right? Like that's what he's always going to be remembered for. Like it's unfortunate, that kind of typecast him in a bad way, in a not so good way, unfortunately. And he was the victim in that situation. Really a bummer, but we're talking about make-believe after all. It's a movie. Phil, again, bro, love you. He says, guys, a friend in Colorado told me they were about to drop charges against Uwazurike like Iowa did. Have you heard any updates? No updates specifically. Look, the whole thing with Colorado, let me go back through my mental Rolodex, is that the NFL has to wait to see if the state of Colorado is going to press any charges relative to the gambling things, the accusations, the allegations. But all of the evidence that was used against him at Iowa State was Iowa State, right? Not Iowa. Or was it Iowa? Anyway, doesn't matter. Was ill-gotten, unconstitutional in how it was gotten by the authorities, and so it could not be used in a court of law. Thus, he could not be actually prosecuted / let alone be convicted. So Colorado has the same basic obstacles to trying to get any kind of a case on Uwazurike. So the expectation is, I think still, Zach, that once the Colorado authorities just say, yeah, we're not going to do anything, then the NFL will go ahead and rubber stamp him, and then he should be right back in the saddle, at least initially given an opportunity to come back in and compete. Hopefully he has stayed in football shape, and if he has, I'm sure that it'll be fine.
Yeah, you nailed it. What the NFL tends to do when there's a legal matter is let the legalities resolve itself, and then they render their own punishment. So until the Colorado State thing is settled, then the NFL is not going to meddle. That rhymed. We have to prepare like the Broncos won't have a Uwazurike for the 2024 season, and even if they did, I didn't see a lot on tape that he showed during his time that would make me excited for him to come back. They have some other younger players like Elijah Garcia, Matt Henningsen that could get involved. If they get him back, it'd be a bonus. But what you said there, Chad, is the lingering question I have is how football ready will he be after, what is it, almost over a year out of action? Difference between, staying in shape with your body weight wise and staying in football shape. Big difference.
Right. Here's what Kliss reported on this. Quote, sources also said the NFL is waiting until state and local authorities conclude their review before determining whether to reinstate Uwazurike. This could happen when he's eligible to apply for reinstatement. That's next week, July 24th, or the day after the Broncos vets report to training camp. Quote, while players are often reinstated by the league same day they apply, it's important to note each case is different. In Uwazurike's case, he's accused of placing 32 bets on 5 Broncos games, including one in which he played. Again, accused of. According to a criminal complaint filed last year by the Story County, that's in Iowa, attorney's office. And again, they ended up having to basically drop things because the evidence they acquired was ill-gotten and inadmissible due to its unconstitutionality, if that's even a word. So there's your update on Uwazurike, y'all. Thank you, Phil. Much love and respect. Hey, Zach, what's this business about Sean Payton being ranked the 4th best head coach? What was that all about?
It's Colin Cowherd, who I'm pretty sure is very close buddies with Sean Payton from their time at Fox together and other ventures. But yeah, Cowherd had a list he put out a few days ago, and he had Sean Payton number 4 in the NFL. Only Andy Reid, Sean McVay, and John Harbaugh were listed above Payton. So that's a big shout, Chad, in a time that no one is shouting the Broncos in the Broncos' favor anyway.
Real quick, yeah, Elias, you got to tell us how you want to go, what you want to go by, big dog. We also call you Ebe. You know what I'm saying? We'll take your acronym and just sound it out. We'll call you Ebe if you'd like. But yeah, dude, we saw the star contributions come through. So yes, absolutely appreciate you, bro. Most definitely. A virtual gift. A virtual gift. When you guys know, yeah. No, it came through as stars, big dog. You're good. Okay, Zach. So yes, it's cool to see Payton being ranked 4th, but we also have to remember that's his dog. Like they became tight buddies over that year at Fox, and even shortly after. Well, I guess it was more leading up to the hiring of Sean Payton. He broke a lot of kind of interesting little things about where the arrow was pointing, thanks to that close-knit relationship he has. So, but I don't disagree with him, to be honest with you. Like, you can argue that he doesn't deserve to be that high after, a so-so final year as head coach of the Saints, post Drew Brees retirement, and then stepping away and then coming back 8-9 in Denver year 1. The PR kind of mess that was made by how he opted to bench Russ instead of just letting this. Like, I can understand how you go, well, listen, man, like there's at least, 12 coaches that should be ranked ahead of him on any plausible rankings list, the guys who made the playoffs last year. But that's not really, I think, the fairest way to assess it. Sean Payton, that really is how he's viewed, guys, still around the NFL. Like, maybe not everyone going, oh, he's top 4 right now, but a top head coach, like coveted. That dude, if he walked out of Denver right now, he would have teams knocking on his door. He's doing it his way. He came in here year 1, kind of had to make the most of the situation that was kind of George Payton's way, right? He had to kind of make the most of what the personnel was, give it the old college try with Russ. Was given the green light that if things didn't work out with Russ, the Broncos would be behind him and moving on, and he could go get his own guy. And that's what he's doing. So, I mean, this year, Zach is, he'll always have that 8-9 on his record, but this is really the first year where it's his team in his image fully. His quarterback, I mean, every quarterback on the roster was handpicked by Sean Payton in one form or another, whether free agency, a trade acquisition, or in the draft. I'm excited to see how it comes together.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, top 4 might be a little high. You can argue Mike Tomlin should have been in there, a few others, but he is indisputably, Chad, a top 10 coach in the NFL. And his reputation shouldn't be, I don't think it is varnished by his last season in Denver, his first season in Denver. It's his overall body of work. Same with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson will probably be a Hall of Famer because of his body of work. His time in Denver won't keep him out of the Hall because of that. So you have to keep that in mind.
In case you are just joining us, peoples, the player we were talking about getting injured, the talented rookie, we're talking about Blake Watson, the running back, who was given a nice chunk of change, guaranteed $250,000 to come in and compete. But it's a minor thing if you're just joining us. Yes, he's going to start off on the NFI list, but the Broncos are going to be able to bring him back any day they choose, which implies that they expect him to be back sooner rather than later. So nothing to get too tripped out and worried about. Shouts to Bruno on Instagram, dropping a question and a comment. So it's all good. Okay, we are at about 30 minutes. And, again, we've got Zach tonight's show. We've got Sunday. We've got Monday. We've got tonight, after tonight, 3 more shows of there being kind of like nothing really happening on the daily. Once things are happening on the daily, guys, it's going to be hard to keep an episode at an hour. Like, we're going to want to keep talking past an hour. But until then, once we kind of cycle through the main topics It's like, hey, unless you guys have burning topics on your mind, you want to keep us here talking, we absolutely will. But Zach, for the record, since it happened in between yours and our last episode Monday night, Quinn Meinerz getting that big extension, 4 years, $80 million. You wrote it up. Break it down. What was your gut reaction to the Broncos getting that done before training camp, and some of the implications relative to a few of the other players now entering either a contract year this year or coming up on it soon, like PS2?
First of all, I'm so happy for Quinn Meinerz. What an incredible story, Chad, going from a little-known, obscure Division III Wisconsin Whitewater draft prospect, and then he becomes a starter and now one of the NFL's elite. So he has earned his bag. I'm happy he got it. $45 million guaranteed. It's also really good business by the Broncos, and it's something we've been advocating for on this very podcast, is locking up one of their homegrown studs and sending the message that if you are the most deserving in the locker room, you will be rewarded. You have to take care of your own and build from within and build from the trenches, which Sean Payton loves to do. So I advocate for it fully. It was a good look for George Payton, who drafted Quinn Meinerz, and George Payton can't get enough of those right now, Chad. He needs all the good looks he can muster between now and the end of the season. What it means for Courtland Sutton, I don't know. I feel like they had a little money to spend and they put it toward Quinn Meinerz, which is the right move. What it means for PS2, I don't know. I would assume he'd be the next one they lock up, but that's going to be even more of a chunk of change. But this was 1,000% the right move. And I guarantee you, getting ahead of the market now before it keeps inflating, this deal will be a steal in a year from now, if not sooner.
Yeah, dude. Amen to everything you just said. You know, you think back to how dangerously close Quinn Meinerz' career came to not really happening, because playing in that Division III Wisconsin Whitewater, that whole league basically shut down right when he was just starting to scratch the surface in terms of like NFL interest. He goes an entire year, Zach, without being able to ply his trade and show what he can do and prove it on the grass. Goes up to his family property in Ontario and like the trees thing, knocking down trees and all that. If he doesn't get that invite to the Senior Bowl, does he get drafted? I don't know. I think he maybe still would have, but still, the Senior Bowl, Zach, saved the day for him. Got him on fully on the NFL radar. He ends up in Denver, and it's just such a cool story, man. And I love that dude's just his mentality, his attitude, gets after it. Super athletic. I mean, what an asset. I'm just glad once again, Zach, my biggest takeaway from this, again, kudos to Big Quinn Meinerz getting that bag. But I'm just stoked once again that we have leadership in Denver that sees the forest for the trees. Like, this is exactly the type of player that in the preceding 7-8 years, like, you just got used to being disappointed. Like, well, why aren't they doing what we see as like the obvious thing, letting guys go or, not picking this guy or whatever. This is they know what's up. Let's put it that way. Sean Payton, George Payton, so far as a tandem, they understand how the bread gets buttered, and it's really encouraging.
Yeah, you touched on it, but I don't know who saw it. Quinn Meinerz uploaded a video on social media of him doing pass blocking sets out there in the wilderness with the trees. If there's ever an offensive lineman you want blocking a rookie quarterback, that's the offensive lineman. One more note that stood out, Chad, one more takeaway is that with this contract, $80 million, 45 guaranteed, the Broncos have shelled out $219 million combined between Meinerz, Mike McGlinchey, and Ben Powers. If I'm Garrett Bolles, who's entering a contract year and looking for a new contract, I am not holding my breath.
I mean, it really depends. I'm with you. Like, you start going, well, I mean, is there going to be any room at the end? If Bolsey goes out and has himself a 2020/2021 kind of, even last year, he stayed healthy. He was solid. Was he great? No, but like, he was solid. He was, I would say, NFL average starting left tackle, and that's not nothing. That is worth something in the league. It's worth actually big money. He's a former first-round pick. He's been through the NFL desert with the Broncos. Like, he suffered through all the depredations. If he plays solid, this is a guy also, let's remember, Zach, from Utah. So, like, he's been able to play his whole football career in the relative kind of geo center of where he wants to be. if the Broncos want to bring him back after 2024 and he plays well enough for them to say, hey, we want to bring you back, but look, we just had to pay Ben Powers 2 years ago and McGlinchey, and then we just paid Meinerz. There's some money for you, but it's not tippity top of the mountain money. It's, team friendly. Would Bolles take it? I think he would, to be honest with you. I think he would actually take that and stick around rather than try and chase the biggest. By the way, Ebe jumping in again. We got Ebe throwing down some big boy, massive stars on Facebook, and his message to everybody, it's just one word: Broncos. Thank you, bro.
I appreciate it. And about Garrett Bolles, let me clarify what I said. I'm not holding my breath if I was him for a multi-year, long-term, lucrative contract from the Broncos. Because right now, Chad, he has a team-high $20 million salary cap hit for 2024. And as an aging left tackle who's never really been top 10, deserving of a top 10 salary for a left tackle, it's a little much. If he wants to maybe, if they want to extend him by a year and lower that salary cap number, fine. But for him to get a 4-year contract at top level market value, I think that ship has sailed.
I think the only way that ship doesn't sail is if he comes in and gives you like an all-pro caliber season. But Zach, you're right. He just turned 32. I mean, we got to remember that, first of all, 2017 was a while ago, right? But he also started his playing career as just straight up. He was a late bloomer. He didn't even start playing tackle football at a high level till he was a lot older. I mean, as a rookie, 2017, what was that, Zach? So that was, we'll just say 7. So he's like 24, 25. He's like a Bo Nix rookie. Like, this is what you're looking at with Bo Nix. Similar thing where like different positions. And so the calculations are different. But another example of, like, in the case of Bo Nix, like, you got to get him on the field. The Broncos were smart enough back then anyway, Zach, 2017, with their left tackle, who was still very green behind the ears, very raw, a lot to learn, real grabby, getting busted on the reg by the officials for holding. But at least they had the sense to go, all right, we just drafted a 24-year-old rookie. We're in the first round. We're going to play him.
The only leverage Bolles has here is the fact that the Broncos don't have anyone behind him right now to take over. I mean, Frank Crum or Chewski, whatever, or Matt Pert, they're not ready to take over for Bolles. If they had someone, Chad, if they actually would draft a tackle at any point, maybe that would be a different situation. But when has he ever given you all-pro play? I mean, you're talking about if he's an all-pro, he's never been close to that, Chad. Maybe 2020 is the lone exception, but that year they were intentionally calling less holding, around the league, and it benefited Bolles. He's never been that caliber of tackle.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So he's currently, as it stands, for what it's worth, let me double check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's the 9th highest paid left tackle in the NFL. As Scott says, I'd offer him 3 years, $45 million with 28. What'd you say? $28 million guaranteed, which is probably what they did offer him and why he doesn't have an extension. But let's say, this based on an average per year, right? You take him down to $15 million per year. Guess what? You're not the 9th highest paid anymore, but you're the 11th or 12th. Take that money, my dog. You're 32. By the time you get to next offseason, you're staring down the barrel at 33. It's maybe probably more something like this: 2 years, $30 million, but still take it, dude, and stay a Bronco. And I think that's, I'm optimistic because, look, left tackles don't grow on trees. He has been through the refiner's fire. Like, the Broncos developed a shiznit out of him. Apologies, I didn't say the word, but probably a little too close. But still, I mean, they suffered through the fiery darts of what it means to develop an uber raw, high profile first round pick. And it paid off for him, got that all pro year. He got the second contract. He has turned into, outside of that, what was it, 22 that he missed with the broken leg? Yeah, 2022. Outside of that year, he's been available and really 2020 on, he's been pretty consistent, but now he's getting long in the tooth. So it will be interesting, Zach, to see how it all comes out in the wash for GB.
I mean, yeah, they developed him. He got a second contract. He's been there 7, 8 years now, and it's time to move on, Chad. And you only get third contracts, or you only play a whole career if you're an elite level player. If you're a Walter Jones left tackle, for example. Garrett Bolles simply isn't. I think one thing we can agree on before we get to David, which I agree with, too many holds from Bolles, is that the Broncos' first round pick, whether Bolles is on the roster come week 1 of the offseason or not, it has to be a tackle. They have to find his replacement and start grooming him to take over. Enough's enough, Chad, ignoring that position.
True. True in terms of, something, I don't know. We might not perfectly share a brain on the whole Bolles thing, but contract year, go out and show it what he got. But the Broncos, let me see if I can look at this just for craps and giggles. Let me go cap space. Let me go 2025 as it stands, right? Broncos sit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th in the NFL, 13th most cap space projected for 2025 at $36 million. So they're going to have some money if they want to keep Bolles around, but they also got to budget some coin for PS2. Like
Yes.
there are, what are you going to do with Javonte, Sutton? By the time Sutton's deal's out, I mean, they did time that extension for Sutton really well. Basically, the money runs out when he hits 30, and then they can kind of make a decision. But I was surprised to see that $36 million projected cap space for 2025.
Earlier, you talked about players that you weren't crying for, Chad. I'll add Garrett Bolles to that list. I looked up his career earnings. He's made $63.3 million in his career to be probably a top 12 tackle at most. And he's due to collect $16 million in base salary this season. I'm not crying for him one bit, whatever happens with his salary for the season.
Yeah, he'll be pushing basically $80 million by the time his contract year and career earnings comes to an end. Yeah. All right, guys. So we're at 41 minutes. Last call for topics. There is one other thing, Zach, I wanted to get your thoughts on real fast here. Or did I already get it? Hold on. Let me double check this. Well, I guess we got the main things I wanted to. Oh, yeah. So the Patrick Surtain thing. So ESPN, Zach, every year for the last 5 years, they do a poll of They do a poll of NFL executives, coaches, and scouts. They say, hey, give us your top 10 players at all the positions, right? All 11 positions, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's kind of cool. Dang it, stop it. It's kind of cool and unique, Zach, in that, it's actual NFL executives and it's a poll. Patrick Surtain ends up as the number one polled cornerback, pardon. All right. And that's cool and all. That's not really why I'm bringing this up. I mean, we did write about it. But the reason I'm actually bringing it up in our conversation is there were some concerns expressed. They did mention these like, here's an NFL personnel director, here's a scout, here's a coordinator. He said, quote, come on. He did not have, talking about 2023, Zach, he did not have the best year, but he's still the best pure talent. He moves the best, and you can do the most with him as far as coverage. So if I'm starting a team, I'm probably picking Patrick Surtain II. So your thoughts on that? I guess we're not tripping too hard, kind of feeling like he did take a little bit of a step back last year.
No, usually I rail against these evaluators' outside opinions on the Broncos. And in this instance, Chad, I think it's spot on. That Devontae Parker catch still stays with me, or at least that game against New England that PS2 was continually roasted in a way that I hadn't seen him get roasted before. Wasn't his finest season. It wasn't Justin Simmons' final season. You could argue VJ had something to do with that. No coincidence he arrives and the good players take a step back. But PS2 still is the best corner in the league, and I'm happy that he's getting his shine as well.
For what it's worth, the top 5 beyond Surtain go Denzel Ward, Sauce Gardner, Jarius Sneed, Jalen Ramsey. But here's a couple quick things, and then we'll probably dip out of here. This is from Jeremy Fowler, quote, several evaluators did see slippage in his play in 2023, and his grip on the top spot was not overwhelming. Surtain allowed 58 receptions for 790 yards and 4 touchdowns with just 1 interception on 90 targets as the nearest defender, which was good for a 102.5 passer rating relinquished to opposing quarterbacks. The context, according to multiple coaches who prepped for Surtain, is that Denver sometimes played in softer zones that attached Surtain as the nearest defender quite loosely at times. And random plays such as a 68-yard double move score from Robbie Chosen late in a blowout loss to Miami affected the bottom line. So, in other words, Zach, there were some outliers. There are things by way of context that kind of explain his step back, but the eyeball test meets all the other metrics. We all know he didn't have as good of a year. I think a big reason for it was the philosophical and schematic shift. There are other explanations, instability at corner, instability at safety. There are other explanations, but I think that is the biggest reason why. But at the end of the day, the onus falls on the individual, and Surtain has to be the one to turn that ship around because he got a pass because of his name, right? Still got the Pro Bowl nod, all that stuff. He's still getting #1 voting. But if he turns in a 2024 campaign that's like not even scratching the surface of what his true potential is, he'll start falling off these lists.
1,000%. You nailed that, Chad. And I was going to say, only thing I can add is, he had a down season, which we can all admit. Like you said, we saw it. It's just homerific to say he didn't. But he had a down year, and he still made the Pro Bowl. Just shows how good he is. And I'm interested to see how Patrick Surtain rebounds from a down year. We've never seen him come back from that. He's always been ascending, and now he kind of stabilized a little bit. If he can take a step forward, and if VJ, my God, play him in press man, enough with the zone coverage with PS2, it would help a lot. And I think he'll have a bounce back season, Chad.
Hey, by the way, Scott, did you notice that now when you hover over the concurrence, it shows Twitter metrics? It actually breaks down X metrics. Do you notice that, Zach? That's a new development. But yeah, hey, real quick, checking in on our YouTube peeps, making sure you're still alive. Look, we got Riptide. He's the first comment in the last 20 minutes. Facebook dominating the conversation tonight. So props to not Ebe, not Elias. We got confirmation. It's Eli. LOL. We'll remember that, big dog. Thank you for your support tonight, bro, and keeping the conversation going with us here. Okay, we got a couple messages here before we dip out. Don't leave quite yet.
Cannot believe it's been already 47 minutes of the Mile High Huddle podcast. Another tremendous episode. If you're not doing so already, please follow us on Twitter at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every podcast, check out mhhmerch.com and get you some. If you haven't done so yet either, please check us out on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your Football Priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some of that merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please, please, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
A mile high salute and a special shout out to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters on Facebook tonight, helping us keep the conversation going and helping us keep the lights on. Starting with the Duchess, Michaela Parker. We love you. Thank you. We got the Ronk on Facebook. We got Phil down in Tucson on Facebook. Taylor Christensen breaking the ice on YouTube. George Fox on Facebook. Eli throwing down big boy stars on Facebook. David Yunkin on YouTube. Appreciate you, big dog. Much love and respect, guys. Have a great weekend. Zach and I, of course, will be back Sunday evening. Can't wait for that. And then, of course, tomorrow night, you've got some Dove Valley Deep Divers. You got Orange and Blue View on Saturday. So enjoy your weekend. Zach and I look forward to seeing you Sunday night.
Have an amazing weekend, y'all. We'll see you Sunday. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.